Madam Chair, let me just finish setting the meeting up and I will hand it over to you.
Okay.
Let me just check on my phone to make sure we are indeed live. All right, we are live, and just to, I'm also going to record it. All right, Madam Chair, it is all yours.
Terrific. I want to thank everybody to coming to the City of Westminster's Historic District Commission agenda evening meeting Wednesday, January 5th, 2022 at 7 o'clock. It's a virtual meeting and it is being recorded. I'd like to call the meeting to order by our statement of authority, which goes, the Westminster Historic District Commission derives its authority from Chapter 164, Article 9A of the City Code, which is authorized by the Maryland Code Annotated Land Use Article Division 1, Single Jurisdiction Planning and Zoning, Title 8, Historic Preservation. The qualifications of the Westminster Historic District Commission are on file at the City Administration Building, now at 45 West Main Street, and the file is open to the public. I want to do a quick roll call of everyone who's here, just to make things nice and clean. So you have Chris McMasters. Who else do we have tonight?
Kevin Wagman.
Kevin Wagner. Chris Amadori.
Amadori, yeah.
Aaron Burrows.
Aaron Burrows.
Grace,
Anyone
I don't know
else?
if you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Grace Cloutier.
Andrew Gray from the City of Westminster.
Andrea Gerhard from the City of Westminster.
Anyone else? Well, that sounds like a passing. So we'll go with what we have. All right. One of the first things that I have on my list is to ask for the approval of the minutes for November 3rd, 2021. The only thing I can see is that my name was spelled wrong on the second page, Andrew. It's an E-N, not an I-N.
Okay, we will have that fixed.
Do we have anyone else who wants to make any discussion about the minutes? If there's no other comments, I will ask for a motion to approve.
Happy to motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chris. All right, great. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Or
Aye.
waving, I guess. Waving.
Aye.
All right, terrific. Let's move on then to old business, the demolition permit at 288 East Main Street. Andrew, would you like to speak to that?
And this will be Ms. Gerhard, Madam Chair.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not going to bring up the whole staff report as we've previously discussed it, but what I do want to do is just to bring some new aspects into it. So on December 15th, we received the draft historical and architectural archiving report from Dean Camlin. for 288 East Main Street. It was a very large document, so I hope everyone had an opportunity to access it via the FTP site, and also was able to see the report, which was on page 9 of the site. Also included,
Actually,
yeah.
Andrea, just for point of clarification, I was not. It is city password protected.
Yeah, and it has it on there as well in the staff report what the password is. It's main.
Okay. I felt locked out of it because I didn't understand that password.
Yeah, it's
and-
it's the password main, M at the @IN.
Got it.
So, but, so just to let, just so that I can share with you, a little bit about it. So there was an archiving report, which were, there were 9 pages of documentation. The majority of that being almost 80, pictures, majority of them being, the current pictures, and then some historical pictures. And this report, as well as, kind of the footprint and showing everything about the building. And so we can, if you want, if Andrew doesn't mind clicking on the link, we can show you this quickly, just what some of these things are. I don't know, it should work. So it's on the very last page, and that's why we kind of wanted to let you know that the report was on page 9, because it can be incredibly confusing. I would think that if you didn't know what you were looking at, so I just wanted to make sure you knew that that was where the article was, or the report. But anyway, so Andrew, if you just want to click on a picture, just so that we can show an example of what types of things were included. The first few of them
Can you
are
see-
the
can you see-
historical.
Can you see the photo on the screen, Andrea?
No, right now we just see the website or the FTP site. So we have the car information. Okay, so here's an example of one. Thank you, Andrew. So we have like 70 pictures that show the current state of the building, which gives a much more in-depth situation and provides information and much more than what we've previously seen. And then we also have the report. In addition to, it was included on this, on the FTP site, as well as in the document itself, was the statement from Dean Camlin as to how he is. Oh, this is a perfect picture too, of what I was going to say. But as to, how he's qualified to present this information to you, there were certain qualifications and things like that. So he did provide that statement as well. So before you all have, start your discussion, or continue your conversation and discussion. So just like I said, we got this report. It is in a draft form. It was provided to us on the 15th, so that's why we're here before you today to do this. And so we're looking, just as a reminder, we're here looking for a recommendation of any kind to get your thoughts and opinions. The recommendation that's in the staff report, just to reiterate it, is that staff recommends that any approval of the demolition permit be subject to any new development of the property. Make sure that there's every effort to reuse those logs that was just previously on the screen, either to be incorporated by the main building and shall meet the requirements of the City of Westminster's the Design Preference Manual and the Historic District Design Guidelines. I didn't want to take up too much time because I wanted you guys to feel like you had the opportunity not only to ask me questions, but Mr. Camlin as well as Mr. Knox, the property owner, are both on the call. And obviously, Mr. Camlin can answer a lot more than I can about his report. So wanted
So
to
one
turn it
thing,
over.
Andrea, I think would be really super helpful is if we could have an opportunity to have the full historic structures report printed for us. And if we had an opportunity to do a walkthrough, because I just feel like, maybe I'm just technically challenged, but I did not understand that something password protected, had password in it. It just never occurred to me that you would do that. You know what I mean? And I just feel I'm not really prepared tonight without a walkthrough. Is there any opportunity for that?
As in a
Yes,
walkthrough. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sorry, Andrea. I was just going to ask the same thing. I think, are you asking Chris if we can physically walk through? Because I don't think the structure is safe for a group of us to walk through.
That's
it
what I was
anymore.
about to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I wanted to get a bit more clarification, Chris, of what you were looking to do.
I would love to be able to put my head in as far as I'd like to be safe about it, but I think that peering around the plastic would be helpful. Looking at any open areas would be helpful. Physically being on the site would be helpful. Certainly Peter Kurtz from the Maryland Historical Trust was able to come to an assessment that he felt it could be rehabilitated from just a street view. And if we got an opportunity to actually get on the property, we might be able to see what he was able to see.
Well, can I jump in? So at least the summer kitchen, I mean, that looks pretty sturdy to me. I don't know. Maybe we could at least look at that. That would be, depending on what happens with this whole situation, that summer kitchen appears to be in decent shape. Maybe we could at least, access that and look at that.
I would agree.
That's fine. That's fine with me, but it's filled up with storage up to the door.
I didn't, you're kind of,
Yeah, too
Mr.
close.
Knox, you sound kind of fuzzy. Can you repeat that, please?
I said you can look in it, but it's full of storage and it's full of refrigerators and appliances.
Okay.
So there's not much you can see in it, but I can open the door for you and
That would be-
okay.
That would say a lot. I mean,
Because
if there's
I'll put a new roof on that. That was completely fallen in. And I'll put a whole new roof on that, so you know.
oh my. So the original roof was removed by you?
Yes, because it was down in the shed. And I think there is pictures somewhere of that. But
So
Okay.
go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, so we're still speaking about the separate building towards the back of the property.
yes, the summer kitchen.
I could return to the main structure here for a moment. I'm actually curious to hear, Jordan, from you and Dean. There was an earlier question about rehabilitating what's already there. I feel like prior discussions, we also hit upon what would it look like to relocate the beams to, another site or, otherwise preserve the remnants of the structure and some other way that wasn't incorporated into your final design. Have there been any updates to what you are ultimately wishing to do from all these conversations? Like, not that I'm saying that we could do this, but if we waved the magic wand and said, move forward, what is it that have your plans changed at all since we last talked in terms of your ultimate objective?
Dean, did you originally submit the plans that we drew up?
Jordan, I'm sorry, your sound is very, it's like it
Okay.
got too much volume to it or something.
Did you, I'll stand back here a little bit. Did you submit the plans that we originally drew up? For the first time I talked with you about the structure?
What we had was a schematic design that did not incorporate any of the existing building in it.
Right.
Those drawings, Jordan, they were not detailed enough at the point that we stopped to be able to submit them for any kind of approvals.
Okay.
But just as a matter of clarification, one of the things that I heard floated here just a moment ago was, incorporating what's there. But to be clear, that is not part of your plan at the moment. That is not a proposal that you are actively considering, Dean, in your plans.
Josh, that, as far as I'm concerned, it would be possible to do that, but no design work has been done to try to incorporate the original log structure in the new design.
So Mr. Ambrose, what you brought up, it was something that I was going to bring up. I'm just going to jump in. So the letter attached from the Maryland Historic Trust from the director, Elizabeth Hughes, on the second page, the first paragraph, she says, and I'm paraphrasing, rehabilitation remains possible and would be the best possible outcome for the property and for the Historic District of Westminster, and that there are financial incentives, and that Maryland Historic Trust is willing to work with Mr. Knox. So has that been taken into consideration, or are you aware of this, or, you know?
Are you asking me?
Anybody, you know, we're just trying to do the best thing for everybody here. So, I mean, it's a really, I think it's a good offer, you know.
Well, I thought everything. I didn't even know it was a historical building to start with. And I bought this property thinking I could fix it up. And then it was to the point that it was just, everything was crumbling when I touched it. So, and I didn't know I could get grants to get it fixed up.
Okay. But now that you know, and people are willing to work, and institutions or departments are willing to work with you, is this something that you would be interested in pursuing and having some help with that?
Yes, I just don't know how to go about doing all that.
Okay. I would think.
Also, Ms. Amadori, today was the first time that I had seen the letter from Ms. Hughes.
Okay.
And I'm not sure of the kind of rehabilitation that she is suggesting, whether she's suggesting restoration or renovation. Rehabilitation can encompass both of those possibilities. Restoration, I think, would be difficult because so much of what would be restored would not be original. It wouldn't be historic fabric. It would be modern materials attempting to look historic. And that would really be contrary to the goal of historic preservation.
Right.
So maybe the kind of rehabilitation that Ms. Hughes is suggesting might be the incorporation of the log structure into a new building that would preserve some of the parts of this old building in a new structure.
Right. So Mr. Campbell, I do realize there is a difference between there's preservation and there's conservation and there's restoration, because I do that with books and paper. So I do understand that. I guess I know this is not going to be perfect for any party here, but perhaps there's a way to at least make the facade sympathetic to, you know, the rest of the neighborhood, and then maybe if take the beams and use them for something else, or use the beams in the reconstruction of a newer building or something like that. So I don't think that anybody's asking for a total rehab, but
so wait a minute, Christine, let me just step back a little bit. So Marilyn, or Elizabeth Hughes is the State Historic Preservation Officer, and she's interpreting the National Historic Preservation Acts. And when she talks and interprets and uses words like rehabilitation, they have a very, very specific meaning. So she did not request the landowner to restore or recreate anything completely accurate or perfect or pristine to the time period. That was not in her request. When she used the word rehabilitate, she's very clearly, and we can pull up the regs for you to define what rehabilitation actually means, but that's just taking existing fabric and finding a way to make that functional again. All right. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going into mothballs and being preserved. That was a house. It can be a habitation again. And the historic elements can be utilized in making it another habitation. That structure has elements that can be rehabbed. And so it's really more, I think, the challenge and the future is to figure out how do we do that best. We can work with the state and ask even more specifically what the historic preservation outlines really mean. Nobody's saying that every matchstick has to be put back exactly the way it was in the 1850s, but I think that there has to be a semblance again of what was there, and there's historic fabric that really should be incorporated into that same type of structure to be rehabilitated.
Right, agreed. That's
so let's not get caught up on semantics. I think that's unfair, especially to Elizabeth Hughes, because she's really the state's arbiter of how those terms ought to be used.
And if I may, I want to interject as well. It is in the recommendation for what was presented to this commission that, and I'm just reading straight from the recommendation on page 4, it shall meet the requirements of the City of Westminster 2016 Development Design Preferences and Westminster Historic District Commission Design Guidelines. So that would touch on the facade that you had also mentioned, Christine. But it sounds like we might be getting ahead of ourselves here, because I think really the crux of the conversation is there a way that we can approve this demolition permit in a way that's beneficial to the landowner, the property owner, and the Historic District Commission and our objective? And I think that's where we need to focus our discussion. I don't want to get too deep down into the weeds on design and plans and that sort of thing. If we can focus more on the higher level, is it even possible for us to do that? What would be the recommendation?
Especially since I feel like we still have an identification issue in walking the structure and looking at it with the report. I mean, that's your baseline information, right?
Right.
And if we haven't had the chance to do that yet, I don't think we're even at a place where we can make decisions about go, no go. And when we're at the place of go, no go, we should know where we're going, right? So let's look at the fabric. Let's look at the documentation to make sure it's all accurate, that all our questions are answered as safely as possible. And then the next question is, so if a demolition is approved, what are the contingencies, or what are the stipulations that goes with that approval? Do they cover the structure that's going to go there afterwards, or do they cover how much of the historic fabric is going to be saved? We really should have something from the landowner saying to us what is the expectation. What's the proposal?
And I also think we can gain more from a site visit than just seeing the building itself. It helps immerse you in the actual environment of the surrounding buildings as well. So more than just seeing the building, it may not be safe to traverse the structure, and that's entirely possible that we can see it only from the outside, but we can at least get a feel for what the buildings around it and that type of feeling in terms of the historic fabric that we're trying to preserve. So I think a site visit would be beneficial for the commission.
So would the next step besides that also be, would we contact Ms. Hughes and ask her to follow up on this, or is that our responsibility, or how does that work?
From my point of view, I would ask for a proposal from the landowner as to what can be done. What is the best case outlook here? We're going to check the documentation. I'm sure it's great by Mr. Camlin. He's very expert at all this, but I would love to have a proposal of with what would be the best case outcome for everything that this landowner can do. I mean, he's got new information now. He'll have a new opportunity to find out more about funding and availability for grants and what could be done. Peter Kurtz is a historic architect. He may have some ideas that he can avail of them, those ideas about rehabilitation. So to me, I think that's the next step, is what is the can-do position of this landowner?
I'm sorry, I want to chime in just for a second. I also want to bring to light also that as you look at this and you talk about what's possible on the site and everything, even as we said, and how Aaron also pointed out in the recommendations, that a new development of any kind would need to follow these certain things. There's also certain things in the city code that would need, as far as development happens. So there may be something that ultimately, this is what they would like to do, but as going through the site plan process, it might change slightly or for different reasons based off of what's required in the code. So
absolutely, Andrea, we only have jurisdiction over a small piece of this puzzle.
So I just wanted to bring that to light in case there's, I just wanted to bring that up as well.
Right. We can't magically make water allocations improve or something. That's not our gig. Our gig is dealing with the historic structures on site, keeping the historic district intact. I mean, we don't want to lose a front tooth that ruins the whole smile of downtown. So we're going to do our very best to protect the entire district along with this one property. So on that, are we going to get a copy of the documentation, hopefully, and an opportunity to visit?
I'd just like to, sorry, if I can weigh in on the visit for a moment. I mean, I'm wide open to a visit. I will note there's a lot of pictures in here. All you have to do is plug in the password. I'm paging through them right now. And I'm just deeply concerned. This building has been without a roof for months already, by my reckoning. It's not a great time for a building to be without a roof, and the damage is just going to continue to escalate. I would like to draw our commission's attention again. We're talking about what's in our jurisdiction and what's not in our jurisdiction. And not to air our dirty laundry in front of the world, but I'm still a little confused on that point. The letter that we're all referencing says, their understanding is that the city of Westminster cannot require rehabilitation. And so if we're going to put off work on this for a while to do a walkthrough, and then the city can't require anything regarding rehabilitation, what are we really looking at? What's our objective? So to agree with earlier sentiments, I do think for the landowner and for Dean, the sooner that we can ascertain what it is that you really want to do and how that might arrive at a compromise with the historic concerns, whether that's salvage or whether that's incorporation, I think that would lend a lot of clarity to the next couple months of discussion here.
Yeah, I think a proposal that actually says what's coming that would help satisfy all concerns would be really important, but I just want to double check the documentation first and foremost. So we're all talking about the same thing. So can we make a time to do that? Do we want to go as a corporate whole, or do we want to go individually?
Could Ann Mr. Gray, could he send a doodle poll and ask when it would be convenient for all of us and then see who can do what? I mean, that's what he usually does. So is that possible? Is he on the call?
Yes, the commissioner.
Oh, there you are.
That-
Okay.
It's all right with the commission, and also we would need permission from the property owner.
Of course.
And
I would
it,
like to-
Andrew, I'm sorry, just a question of clarification. It doesn't count as a, as far as the Open Meetings Act and everything, everybody being together outside of a meeting?
That is a
Or
great
is that-
question. Since the commission would be talking business, that would be, as far as I'm concerned, unless Mark, you see otherwise, an open meeting, and we would have some sort of agenda that would be needed.
So we just post the date, right? And post the address if the landowner approves.
Correct.
And it would be open to the public. I'm a little confused as to what's happening though right now. The only thing before the HDC tonight is a demolition permit. And we're looking for a recommendation on the demolition permit. Not about future development, or what can or cannot happen on the property. That's a whole separate process that'll go through Planning Commission. We can certainly bring the plans to the HDC for review as part of the Planning Commission process. That could be a recommendation as part of this, but holding up the demolition permit so you can go out and look at the property and what may or may not happen on the property, I'm not quite sure what the need for that is.
Mark, I guess I would disagree because normally with demo permits, professional recording is a critical part of approval of any kind of demo permit. And I'm not feeling confident that this recording is accurate, and without an opportunity to step through the property, it's, I'm not throwing any slings at anyone, but when we've done demos before, we've always been allowed to walk through the property. And I can tell you the commission was burned on the Royer House on Belgrove Avenue, where the demolition was planned one day after our meeting to look at the property, and the documentation did not gel. It was not accurate, and darned if that building didn't go down before we were able to settle some inaccuracies. So I consider it critical to have that baseline document approved before any approval of the demo permit.
I totally agree, Ms. McMasters. That's the whole point. I mean, you can't just approve the demo without doing the work before the demo. So yeah, I think that needs to be done.
Yeah, not to mention that would also impact the stipulations for whatever demolition permit is eventually approved. If we get out there and every single one of the logs that was there since 1850 is rotten to the core, then we really shouldn't have a stipulation in there about preserving that. That would be cost prohibitive to the property owner. I think that would be a bigger reason to go, is to make sure that we're accurately representing the stipulations from the HDC and the objective of the HDC, the stipulations for the demolition permit.
I'm a little hesitant having HTC members walk through a building that is not secured. And I'm hesitant to have a property owner take that risk on. If that's,
I'm sorry, I was going to say, and the public as well.
and the public, because again, this would be a public meeting. The public would be able to enter this property with the HDC and the building. I'm a little concerned that put you at risk and the property owners at risk as well. I'm not sure.
If I can chime in as just, again, a dissenting voice that's actually agreeing with Mark on this one, having paged through the 80 pictures that are in this archive and available to us, having driven by that building almost every day, and, even walking on the sidewalk and peering in, I don't think we want a group of us walking in that building. Like, it is not safe for us to be in there. And, I know that a number of us live in that neighborhood. I would encourage you to walk by if you need to see it from the front. But honestly, the pictures that we have in here are way more better intel than we're going to get by standing and peering in the windows. And so I would encourage all of us, maybe we need to work with Andrew to figure out the password protection on the folder, or I'm happy to hang on Zoom and show people how to access that later. But really just want to say the information in the folder is good, and I would encourage us to look at it closely.
I don't think anybody is saying, like, let's have 12 people walk into that structure, because obviously that would be foolish, but I don't see why we couldn't walk the grounds and peek, in the windows, or walk in one of the doors, and we don't have to have 10 people at the same time doing that. I think that we should have that option to do that, to compare it with the report. At least we might not be able to go up on the second floor, but that doesn't mean we can't go into the first floor or peer in the windows, or look at the summer kitchen. We could look at something.
I recommend that.
I drive by that structure every day, twice a day, but that doesn't help me because I drive by it. So,
well, lastly, I would say, let's not get hung up on just photographs. Although I know there's a lot of great photographs, a good historic structures report includes more than photographs, right? It includes measurements, it includes historical information about the property. And to be honest, I'm sorry I'm not as technological as most of you, but I wasn't able to get into the file until the meeting. That's just not enough time for me to look it over and do a comparison to see if internally the report itself has sufficient information.
I want to point out also that the log core, the original building, really is not visible from the exterior. You really have to go into the building to be able to see any of it. And I agree with Mark and with Josh. It was scary for me going into that building. The first time, I even went back to the office to get a hard hat because I was worried that things were going to drop on my head. That didn't turn out to be the case, but I certainly would not invite any public to accompany anyone if they decided to go into the building. And I don't think Mr. Knox's insurance would cover that either.
Well, I wouldn't be pushing to do anything that makes Mr. Knox uncomfortable on a safety point of view. But I think driving by the alley is entirely different than standing up near the structure itself and peering in.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see some of those logs driving by. I got a feeling if I were allowed to step on the back property, I could do a better job of seeing into the building.
Could the HDC appoint a representative to go instead of in place of an entire group, and that way it would not count as a public meeting? Would that suffice? I turn to Andrew and Andrea for guidance on that, because I don't quite understand if that would qualify as a public meeting or not.
And Mark, I'm not sure, because if one historic district commission member has a different advantage or view of the structure, then they would have, in my opinion, there would be a difference of their point of view would be different than the rest of the commissioners when they're trying to make a decision.
Again, if I can jump in here, we have almost 80 pictures in here. They're very, very clear pictures of the foundation, of the lack of a second story, of the logs, of the collapsing beams, so forth and so on. There are detailed drawings in the folder that talk about the dimensions of the building. I don't know if they're quite as granular as you'd like, Chris, but there are measurements in there. I would highly encourage us that the next step is just to ensure that everybody on the commission has full access to that folder and spends the time to look at it. It is already public record. There's a lot of detail in there. Dean and the landowner have clearly gone to a lot of trouble to document things to give us a best look at it. And honestly, it's safer. And I say this just again as someone who's worked construction for a large number of years. It's unusual for me to say this. I would not go into that building with anybody that was not trained.
Well, I have my own hard hat because I worked construction for 30 years too. So I look forward to at least being allowed to peer in.
Again, I think it comes back to the property owner. I do not, nor does the HTC have the authority to force the property owner, the HTC access to the property. He'd have to offer that. And if it was to happen, I'm still very hesitant about this. I certainly would say it would not include anybody entering the building.
Mark,
Yeah,
would it be possible, or Andrew, could I just share my screen for a brief moment to share a picture? Is that from the folder?
Yes,
Is that-
and
okay.
I'm also pulling up, I'm downloading more of the photos to pull
Yeah,
up as a
Andrew,
screen
if you
share.
could just pull up picture 1289,
Okay.
which shows the building close up from the rear. I think it's a pretty good view if anybody hasn't driven through the alleyway and stopped and look. But I think it's a pretty good view that shows you just how extensive and how dangerous this site is at the moment.
I have driven through the alley several times, but I would like to just walk, even if I don't go into the building, I would like to walk onto the property and up to the building to look at it that way, without going into the building at least.
I really think it's a dangerous precedent to just be accepting documentation with no real review. You know?
And
And
that is what I saw from the alley.
all that was torn down. It wasn't like that for a month because I go there twice a month next door or for a massage. I walk up the alley toward the building and the building was intact. It had a roof. It since then has been taken down. So you can say all you want about it is in deplorable shape, but before that, it was actually, I don't know how good a structure it was. I was never inside. And I am talking about experience. I was for 31 years carpentry teacher.
Yeah, I think we have a real bench of understanding and experience here. And I think we have a lot of people who really want to just do the right thing and feel assured that the right thing's being done. And I really think making sure the documentation is adequate is something we've done in every demo permit previously. I really think we need to be afforded that opportunity, if nothing else, just to be on the property. And of course, we can't do that without the property owner's agreement. Is the property owner still here?
Yes, I'm here.
What do you think?
Well, I wasn't asked, so I wasn't going to answer.
Oh, well, I'm asking you directly. Would it be possible for our team to have access to the property, and what restrictions would you put on us?
I would allow you to be on the property when I'm there. And also just stay outside because my insurance won't cover nothing inside.
You don't have to say because any, just so we know,
Okay.
you know, what you're allowing us to do. I think that
Yes,
sounds
ma'am.
fair. I mean, especially if you're actually with us, then, you know, that I think is important.
Yes, I would prefer for me to be there. So I know some county people were there on my property one day and my neighbor told me about it.
That's not
I
good.
don't know who that was.
No, I think that would be a great thing if we could tell what time you're available and we can go as we choose. Maybe some of our historic district commission members don't feel the need to go also as a visit. That's fine for them, but for some of us who really feel the need to double check on things, I'd like to be there. And I'm willing to work with your schedule. Sir, if you have an opportunity to share that with us. Can you do a doodle poll, or are you not too comfortable with that?
Hey, what?
They do these online polls to find out when times are available.
Even on the
I
weekend.
never heard of that before. But I mean, I could do it anytime, like say 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Like next week, I could do it.
Could the staff do the doodle poll for Mr. Knox? Could Mr. Gray do the doodle poll? He does doodle polls. Could he do the doodle poll for Mr. Knox?
If
If
that
you,
is,
Mr. Knox, if you give the times and days that you would be available, or like the days you would be available, and then Mr. Gray could set up a doodle poll and then see who's available for what day.
Mr. Knox, can you work with Mr. Gray?
Oh yeah, yes. I'll work with anyone. I thought you were asking him if he could do it for me. But yes, they can contact me, and I mean, anytime next week would probably work just fine for me.
Mr. Knox, I will get in contact with you.
Okay.
All right, let's try and set something up. And commissioners, it's certainly up to you whether you want to join us or not.
And if I can jump in just one last time and just repeat, I think it would be really helpful for us and our decisions of just further clarification on what we are considering here. My understanding is that it's a full demolition is what's being asked for, with the possibility of salvage. There is a difference between that and demolition leading to rehabilitation. So if Dean and the owner can, confer and update us on what it is that they're actually looking to do, I think that might inform what we are approving.
I think you've got an excellent point there. That's what we need to know, what the go part is. If we were to go, what are we going to agree to? I think that'll really move the football down the way further. And then lastly, Mark, can you make sure that whatever we do on site is open meeting?
Yes,
And our agenda will simply be information gathering. We won't be doing anything but information gathering. We'll make no decisions on site.
Could there also be like a note on the agenda or something that states about not going on the building, not going inside the building? Or something? I don't know if that's something we do. I'm just saying for somebody, for the public, just coming in and.
I think the note should be that Mr. Knox has total control on where we go on his property. And we'll leave it at that.
I would also just, for the record, recommend that we consider having a special session after we look at the building to try to move this along, both for the safety of the building, of passerbys, and out of respect for Mr. Knox. He has been jumping through our hoops for a bit here. And there's other, of course, complicating issues here. I'm not trying to say that anyone is blameless in this discussion, but I would like to honor everyone's time and just suggest that we don't kick this to the next meeting if possible.
Well, if we have a clear understanding of what's possible from the landowner and future rehabilitation, I'm more than open to any kind of special single topic meeting. We've done that before, by the way, for demos. Anything else on this topic people would like to talk about? Dean and Mr. Knox, are you clear about what we're asking?
We'll have to talk about it among ourselves as to, what we're proposing.
Do we
And
need
try
to put it in? I was gonna say, do we need to put it in a motion? Would that make things a little clearer?
I don't know. That's
Why don't,
too,
you
whether
we
the commission needs to vote on that or not.
Yeah, let's do that just for the record. We've had a lot of discussion. It's all captured on our recording, but I think just for the record, let's make a motion to do a site visit and to ask for a future mitigation package that would include some thought about rehabilitation, and what the landowner can do.
Second.
Second.
Sorry.
Mr. Knox and Mr. Camlin, do you understand that very basic motion?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have a second. Do we have any commission discussion?
Second.
We got a second from Kevin. Aaron's still with us, I think. Josh, Chris, any concerns or qualms or whatever?
I would just say clarification on whether clearly our preference is for rehabilitation, but if that's not the plan, I just want to know that. So clarification either way on what their ultimate goal is post the last several months of discussion.
Yeah, we really need to know what we would be agreeing to. Yes, I agree. All in favor indicate by waving your hands. The eyes seem to get a little muffled when we do that. I see hand waves, so good. Good, I see a thumb up even, that's even better. All right, thank you very much. I think we've concluded this topic, and I want to thank you for your time and effort, gentlemen, Mr. Camlin and Mr. Knox.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you. All right, the application for this facade improvement, I think that's next on the agenda. Let me double check. It's got a little.
Yes, it is, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Things got a little messed up when I was trying desperately to get into that historic structures review. All right. So do we have a report from the staff we'd like to hear?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Madam Chair and commission members. The applicant is requesting facade improvement grant funding in the amount of $10,500 for the following proposed facade improvements contained in the Buildwood Inc. estimate for the principal building. The Historic District Commission should base their review of the application and decide on the appropriate funding level based on the criteria listed under the review section in the staff report. Let me go up to that. And also, the commission should base their review on the City of Westminster Facade Improvement Program overview, which is an attachment to the staff report. And the city's staff recommendation is for the commission to review the attached facade improvement application, City of Westminster Facade Improvement Program overview, and attached estimates, and grant the appropriate funding for the project. Chair McMasters and commission members, I'm here to answer any questions. I can scroll through the application, and the applicant is also on the Zoom call as well. Thank you.
So Andrew, I always take chair privilege and ask the first question. But one thing that's got me very concerned is that even though we have two estimates here, the second estimate is talking about grinding out mortar, which is not best practices for historic brick from the 1870s. And both estimates talk about mortar mixes that I don't believe are appropriate to the age of these bricks. And I'm less concerned about the S mortar for the stone, but I'm more concerned about the appropriate mortar mix for the brick. And the landowner is on the phone. Maybe they can address whether mortar mix was matched, if there's any science behind the selection of those two mortars.
And I can defer to them. They are on the call, Madam Chair.
Terrific. Who do we have?
Grace?
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Grace, how are you?
Good, how are you? So about the mortar, it's more durable. The attempt is to preserve the historic brick in its condition, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the more era-specific mortar might not withstand the weather as well.
So that's true, Grace. The era-specific mortar does not hold up long term. But what happens is when you put in a more pliable high Portland mix in between old bricks, what happens is when the shifting happens with the weather and those bricks will move, they're literally floating on mortar. It doesn't really look like it, but bricks actually float. What's going to go first, the mortar or the bricks? When you get a mortar in there that's got too much strength, the bricks are what get brittle. And in the future, what are you going to want to have break first? A little mortar to rake out or entire bricks? For historic bricks, it's always a better option to go with a softer mortar. Maybe you have to patch it a little more often, and I'm talking in decades, not in centuries. Maybe you'll have to patch it every 10 years instead of every 20 or 30 years. But as a best practice, you'd rather fix that mortar than fix your bricks.
Would the type N mortar be more appropriate and softer on a softer brick face and prevent it from cracking, as you say, when the building itself kind of shifts with age?
It's not so much the age, believe it or not, it's weather. Weather actually causes the bricks to get brittle, and the moisture in between the mortar and the bricks leaves the building. So there's an expansion and contraction. Unlike stone, which doesn't really do that heaving, bricks do over the winter. So every year you have that heaving with the bricks. And if you have some sort of problem with your gutters and the bricks get soaked, it gets exaggerated. It actually is even worse. So bricks are very prone. You know, we have these gully washers and they wick up that moisture. They actually absorb moisture. So the N is not actually recommended. It's the O that's recommended. And maybe, you know, to be helpful, we could say we would, you know, I personally find nothing wrong with anything else other than I wanted it hand raked. When you do a grinding method, you grind into the brick whether you want to or not. It just happens. Now with any brick made in the 20th century, if you use a grinder, it's not a problem. It's nice and fast. The bricks are so hard that a little grinding doesn't hurt them. You're talking 1870s. You start grinding into those bricks and you chew the rim of the orange, you know, the rind of the orange. You chew into it with a grinder and you've exposed the soft middle and you're in a world of hurt. So normally we recommend hand raking, not grinding.
Because these are really soft, porous, they're kiln dried bricks.
They're probably more local bricks. Now, you're in a transition period in the 1870s. You know, the Williamsburg bricks are the ones that are just like melt in your hands like butter. These are a little tougher, but they won't take much. And grinding's really not a recommended way of dealing with your bricks. Not in the 1870s. My house is in the 1870s. That's why I'm so into save the bricks. Don't, you know, sandblast them. You've blasted the rind off the orange, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I've noticed on the corner of the building, on the corner of Ralph and Main, where the city salt truck goes by, any little pelting of salt, even, that's how sensitive these bricks are. It chips away that corner of the building. And I've started to notice that it's worrisome how soft they are. A lot of the faces are gone.
Yep. Well, at some point with the faces gone, the centers will start eroding out. And you'll have to replace the entire brick. So that's another reason not to put in super tensile hard mortar, because when it comes to the point where you have to replace a few bricks, you're not going to want to have to bring in a, you know, front end loader to smash that bond. You don't want to have a softer brick that'll help you just remove and replace nice and quick. So honest to Pete, if you could get, you know, for yourself an estimate for both of those guys to say, hey, look, we want hand raking as much as possible. And we want the OO sand, and then see what the comparison between the two. Honestly, I would say I would go with whoever's cheaper and fully fund you, but I have other commissioners to consider. So, what do the other commissioners think tonight?
Sorry, Aaron, go right ahead.
I was going to say, Chris, I think I speak for all of us when I say your level of knowledge on this is rather intimidating. But
yes.
But I do I have to defer honestly to your expertise on this because I don't know the different types of mortars. I do know that the older the bricks, the more the softer they are, and the more likely they are to absorb moisture. So obviously the moisture content in the mortar is going to play a larger factor as well. But again, if you're talking the types of mortar, I wouldn't be able to guide anybody on that. But I will have to defer to your expertise. I did not see anything in the particular in the facade improvement proposal that was that jumped out at me. Everything looked on the up and up, and based on your recommendation, I would suggest that to the property owner, and we can review this at a later date and approve the funding as presented.
Well, they do have a very tight timeline, and I would offer this as sort of a stipulation, and maybe Andrew or Mark could tell me if it's even possible to simply approve their request and say that with the stipulation that an appropriate mortar would be used in hand raking, and let the landowner find which one of the two are willing to do that. Can we even do that, Mark, or do we have to pick one or the other? I mean, what if they both say no?
Looking at this, Madam Chair, the commission's, so this is basically up to the commission. So you would review the criteria as stipulated.
I mean, do we have to pick one or the other, or can we just put conditions on it and say?
You could, if the commission would like, you all could put a condition on it. For instance, the commission recommends, the commission grants the proposed the facade improvement the commission votes to approve the facade improvement program application for 229 East Main Street with the condition that the applicant use an appropriate type O mortar that is hand raked.
I think that would be a great motion if our commission would want to go with that.
And Madam Chair, one other thing, if I may ask the applicant, if that's all right with them, if that is all right with them, we can talk about this as a conditional approval on the staff level after the commission has made their decision, if that's all right.
That's absolutely okay.
Okay.
Great, Grace, this may push your price up a little.
That's
I
fine.
mean-
Build Good has actually done work on this is a separate topic, but another historic building, the main court building.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very willing to comply with any historic standards to the building's integrity, especially with brick.
The main court building is a perfect example too, because it was sandblasted and it's melting before our very eyes. And worse, it was not only sandblasted once, they painted the whole thing and changed their mind and sandblasted off the paint twice.
That's actually, that's a separate building than what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
But I could see how sandblasting a porous brick face, like you've said, could be very damaging to it, and painting it's detrimental.
Yeah.
I do have photos of the main court building that I'm speaking about, but I think that's a separate topic.
Yeah, definitely. So other chair members, would you like to chime in on perhaps a conditional motion?
I think it sounds great. I think the discussion has been valuable. This was the same thing that I was going to talk about this evening. The only thing I'll note is that for a truly historic restoration, even using type O, it's even better to do an analysis of the original mortar and try to match that as closely as possible. And so a hardcore preservationist would advocate that, again, you take some existing mortar, test it, and then try to match it. But I think the recommendation as it stands now is a great improvement, and happy to endorse it.
I'm willing to second it if somebody makes a motion.
Christine, you have anything?
No, I mean, I'm happy to second it if somebody wants to make the motion to.
I would invite someone to make the motion.
I did have a question though. obviously this is going to increase the cost. What does that do to the application? Do they have to present a new application with the updated cost, or do we have to approve additional funding in the future?
Well, if I may, the facade improvement program, what we've been allocated essentially, there is just about $10,500 left. So this will for this funding round deplete that
Okay.
those funds.
Okay,
So it won't make a difference to the city.
Correct.
got it.
Got it.
Okay.
So do we have a motion on the table?
I will make a motion to approve the facade improvement plan as written, with the stipulation or under the condition that the appropriate mortar be used with hand raking for the exterior brick surfaces.
And
Thank you.
if I may, would that be appropriate, meaning type O mortar?
Type O is a safe one. If they want to go, if Grace wants to go so far as to do exact match, that's even better. But I think usually type O right now is our commercial alternative to doing matching, and it's known to be safe.
How would we go about a direct match with the mortar?
So there's a number of folks who you can consult with on doing that. To do a direct match, you'd need a sample and you need a lab to send it off to. And the company you mentioned, True Built, is that what you said earlier?
Build Good Inc.
Build Good Inc. They would know how to do that, I think. If not, we can get you in contact with the Maryland Historic Trust and they can tell you some labs to send a sample off to. It just takes time.
Okay, because I do believe the building had been repointed in maybe the 1970s. So I don't know if it's entirely original. Some pieces maybe, but it's probably been repointed.
Right. You'll probably want to look for a basement area where it hasn't been mucked with, someplace where you feel fairly confident that, the wall was, covering that spot in the 70s when it happened. It's in the 70s, they put in all kinds of terrible mortar. And that's why we have so many troubles today, to be honest. It's the mortar that's going, not the original stuff usually.
Okay, but would the stipulation be for at least the type O mortar? Do you think that would be the most?
I think I would say the stipulation could be if the commission agrees, type O or appropriately matched mortar,
Okay.
and we would leave that up to you to make that decision. So there may be some practical problems right now getting things tested, and I wouldn't dissuade you from doing it because Commissioner was right about that is the most precise way to do it, but it may not be practical with the time frame you have.
Exactly.
And the O is not going to do any damage.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, would also the motion include, I know the commission was talking about hand raking.
Yes,
Okay.
hand raking's included from what I heard.
So from what I've gathered, the condition is that the applicant use an appropriate type mortar or sorry, an appropriate match or type O mortar that is hand raked.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I
Thank you.
understood.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I understood that we had a second before we had the motion. Is that Christine? Is we still on that second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any further clarifications? Other than I'm so glad this is happening. Grace, you're in my neighborhood. I'm a block away. All right, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Oh, I see hands up. Fabulous, thank you.
What?
All right, Grace, so I'm wishing you the best with this. I hope this allows you to move forward with city staff. If you have any questions, we're available. We can help you, try and figure out any problems you've hit in the field, any snags that happen. We're more than available to help you out. we're looking for the health and the best long-term survivability of all our buildings in town.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. All right. What's our next topic?
Madam Chair, I do apologize, but I do have to depart the meeting a little bit early. So I apologize to the rest of the commission, but I will review the notes, the minutes after the meeting is over.
Thank you so
Thank you all.
much. Have a good night. All right. So our next is 106 Dish Wireless at 2 College Hill. Andrew, would you like to present?
Yes, Madam Chair. Dish Wireless, the applicant is proposing to locate a new telecommunications antenna on the existing telecommunications tower located at McDaniel College. According to John Kovacs, there is only one antenna currently on the tower, which is owned by or the Verizon equipment. Board of Zoning Appeals case number A134 approved the tower to be designed to accommodate 3 carriers. The proposed antennas are located at an elevation of 87 feet. And let me bring up the documentation here. The proposed antennas are being located at 87 feet, and the existing antennas are located at 102 square feet. Therefore, the proposed antennas are lower than the existing antennas on the pole and should exhibit less impact to the historic district. Additionally, there is proposed equipment being located in the fenced-in compound at the base of the tower as depicted on sheet A1. For the recommendation, planning staff recommends the Historic District Commission review the attached information and provide feedback and/or questions regarding the project. Madam Chair, as you know, after the commission makes a determination here at the meeting with if there is any adverse impact to the historic district, you and I will meet up somewhere where it's safe to do with COVID protocols, and I'll have you sign the letter and we can send that to the applicant. The applicant is also, representative of the applicant is also on the line as well. If you have any questions for me, Madam Chair, I'm here. Same with your fellow commission members. And I'll turn it over to you and the applicant as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask who the applicant is tonight to say hello?
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. This is John Kovacs. I am here representing Dish Wireless.
Thank you, Mr. Kovacs. Do we have any commissioners with any questions?
I do not. I think it looks great.
All right, so hearing no questions and no concerns, to be honest, probably the simplest way is to have no comment and to not respond. Mr. Kovacs, would you be satisfied with that, or do you feel like you need some sort of affirmation that we see no adverse effect to the historic district?
I'm fine with just your statement that you just made. I don't think I'll need anything further. If there's no other approvals required, I will need to go file for a building permit. I'm not sure if that department will require any written justification from your board, though.
They won't require anything from us. And truthfully, if we have no comment, we don't have to put city staff through writing letters and,
Fine,
that
saving
kind of-
everyone time and effort, so.
Yeah. Although we will record it in, in the minutes that we found no comment and had no concerns. So
Understand.
how does the commission feel about basically an inaction? Commissioners? Ooh,
It's up for me.
sounds like a lot of inaction. All right, so we'll just fail to comment and thank you for your time, Mr. Kovacs.
Thank you all. Appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. All right. I think I'm getting old enough. I feel like that's the second time around on that antenna for me. After 20 some years, I feel like this is the second time around. All right. At least they're getting
I think
lower.
it is a different antenna, just for the record. This is one behind the baseball field, and the one we talked about last was on the water tower.
I know, but I mean, we've been talking about these for years. Many, many years. So, all righty, great. Thank you, everybody. Next topic is Celebrating America History Expo. And I asked for this to be put on the agenda, partly because I actually attend the Celebrating America History meetings every month on your behalf. And really the only thing Celebrate America has been able to do in the last year or two has been to virtually work on National History Day. And I also linked together historians to help judge some of the folks who are entering into the National History Day competitions through the high schools. This year, you know, if Omicron doesn't get us, they were planning on doing it in person rather than virtually. And the form that you see up on the screen is an application for us to participate as, you might call it a vendor. We basically have a table to put our stuff out on, tax credit information, maybe a map of the historic district, maybe have a couple of us sit behind the desk and be friendly. It's a little bit like what we had been doing in previous years at festivals, going out and glad handing people. It is a Saturday morning from about 8 in the morning till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on February 26th. This form was due on the 31st of December, but I have enough pull with the organizers that we could definitely get our little table squeezed in there if we'd like to do this. This would be a kind of one of those public opportunities to get to know people, talk a little bit about the historic district. Also, if we wanted to do a actual presentation about the historic district, we would be allowed to have a 10 to 20 minute talk. I'm doing one for the Historical Society already, but one of us could get up and give a little 10 or 15, 20 minute talk about what we do for on behalf of the city. They'll be having these sort of revolving presentations of kids and historical organizations throughout the county throughout the day. So I'm putting this out here asking, do we have enough people who might be interested in joining me at this historic expo? I kind of have to be there anyway because of the Historical Society, but I would ask to have more people come and man the table or even do a talk. Do we have any interest? It's indoors.
I'm always interested in game for things like this. However, that is my father's 87th birthday, so it would depend on what day we are celebrating. So I will get back to you, Madam Chair.
All right, that'd be great. Josh, any interest in that on the 26th?
Honestly, possibly. It's just genuinely too far ahead in my current calendar for me to commit to it in good faith. But I would love to revisit the discussion next month.
Okay. Kevin, are you up for hanging out? Oh, where's Kevin?
Madam Chair, it looks like Commissioner Wegman dropped off the call.
All right. Well, how about we do this? I put in the paperwork to the Celebrate America people. If we have enough people to man the table, we will. If we just have stuff to put out, I can do that while I'm there that day. And we talk about it again in February. How do you guys feel about that? If there's really no interest, I won't even bother with the paperwork. It's just up to you guys.
There's interest. I just have to
See how it goes. Okay. All right, I'll fill out the paperwork so we at least have our table and name probably in the little information that they send out. Of course, this could all change too, guys. It can't, you know, we've been deep six for 2 years in a row. I can see coronavirus coming back and biting us where the schools won't let this happen. This is a close gathering of a bunch of people, lots of kids bringing in their families to see, you know, what they've done, and it could all move virtual again. We'll have to just see what's happening in the world and what the school decides. All right, we'll move ahead as if we know what we're doing. Historic District Commission and public comments. Under item E, I think I was gonna have the same pitch about the Flower and Jazz Festival participation. Luckily, we don't have to fill out a form for that. Do you guys think that maybe this year, if it's in person, we would be interested in having a table outside? Last year we did not, even though the festival went on.
Madam
May I
Chair, if
move-
I may?
Yes,
I did speak to Director of Recreation and Parks, Abby Gruber, at the beginning of this week. And there is a form that the city would have to fill out, but I can fill that out on behalf of the Historic District Commission.
oh, Andrew, you spoil us so rotten. Good. Good.
And I would, that's usually the table right next to the city table where the, where usually, yeah, right, the city table where the flowers are.
Right, I really always like that spot, because I can find you guys easy enough where the flowers are going. So just, last year, I don't know what happened. Last year was, Preservation Month is May. This event happens in May. I think it would be really good, again, for us to get out, shake hands with people, talk a little bit about the historic tax credits. We have handouts that we can pass out. We can put up our big map of the historic district. It always is a fine time with the public. I enjoy pointing out where their house is and whether they're in the district or not. And we just haven't done this for a couple of years. And I really, again, would say, are you guys interested? We definitely need at least 2 people at the table from 10 till, usually we have 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock shifts. So really 6 people for 2 shifts. And you can bring a significant other if you'd like to help man the table.
I think this is a great idea. I think it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite events in Westminster. It's outside. I think it's a great moment for us to be out and about amidst all of the architectural history and to be talking up ways that other folks can tap into the good work and the opportunities. So 100% in favor and happy to at least tentatively put my name forward as someone who will help staff the table.
Take a shift. That would be great. That'd be great. How about you, Chris?
Yep, absolutely. I don't see a conflict. I can't think of a conflict with my schedule. So yes, absolutely.
Well, I think the biggest thing is it's usually Mother's Day weekend. So if you go out of town for Mother's Day, that's where it can be a little problem.
No, that won't be no.
Okay.
And if I may.
Well, Andrew, I think that sounds to me like you can sign us up.
Sounds
and
good. And Madam Chair, if I may suggest, since the actual staffing of the booth doesn't require any type of commission approval, what I can do is set up a doodle poll for the commission members. I think it's the 3 times, 10 to 12, 12 to 2, and 2 to 4, and I can send those out for the commission members when we get closer.
That would be so nice of you, Andrew. That would be great.
Sounds good.
It's always fun. I love doing it every year. I've never got my picture in the paper, but I'm always there. It's always a lot of fun. I just hope we get to do it this year. All right, so with that was another thing I kind of wanted to bring up to you all. Other than that, I don't have much to report on local history angle from my point of view. Everything's been really, really quiet since November. We've done a lot of stuff with the Historical Society. We did a great tour of houses of worship throughout the county. And we had a really good sign unveiling for the Mary Shellman sign. I hope our commissioners have all had a chance to take a look at 206 East Main and see the recognition that is nationwide. We're now on the map for Women's Votes Trail. And we had people from the state come and talk, people from the county. Mona Becker spoke, and it was really a great event. We counted, it was a little over 100 people. So it was a really wonderfully done affair. And it was great to link it in with sort of Merry Christmas. And I think it's a good amenity to add to the city. Other than that, I'm pretty quiet about what I can report to the commission. Anyone else like to make a report? Chris, anything? Josh, anything?
Nothing from me, but I'll note that Andrea has had her hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Andrea, I didn't see you. You're on mute.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm the queen of mute. I just wanted to let everybody know that the Maryland Heritage Area Authority grants have opened. And at the end of this month, an intent to apply is due. These are for capital and non-capital projects. If you have any questions about this, and I'm saying this as you guys being representatives of other organizations too, that if there's any projects that you know of that are going on within the city, if you have any questions, I can direct you, either me or Chris actually could direct you towards that type of information. And so just wanted to let you know that the funding opportunity is there.
And to kind of pile on, thank you, Andrea. We have not had great representation from Carroll County. And right now the funding is geographically distributed. So for example, the very top candidate of Carroll County would be funded first, then the top applicant from Frederick County, then the top applicant from Washington County, then the second applicant from Carroll County, and it goes on. And if we don't have a handful of really strong applications or any, all the leftover money goes to Frederick and Washington County. So we're really missing out on not giving it a try if we don't. So
I believe the past two rounds, the city has gotten full funding for a structural analysis and then kind of the follow-up for the Durbin House. So I'm happy to, really excited that project makes me excited. So I'm hoping that we can also, build off of this kind of momentum that we have, and that we can get some more projects, or either in the city. And Chris, I completely agree with you. I hope that we get, a bunch of Carroll County representation.
it's just something, I think part of it is it's just a 50-50 match. And that's always the toughest part, is coming up with that other 50%.
Then I think that the fact that the projects have to be essentially shovel ready, and that there has to be so much work that's already been done, that maybe a lot of people don't have that thought, yet when the opportunity comes, they're like, oh, this would be really great. But the fact that it kind of is a very quick process. But I do know that, especially with COVID, there's been projects that have been put on hold, by organizations and groups. And maybe this might be the perfect opportunity for them to request funding.
Well, and I will say, and it's maybe a little bit of a secret, I was, part of that team that made the grant last year for the Westminster application. And one of the grant reviewers remarked that it was the very best application he had ever seen. It was as close to a perfect score as ever been for the Durbin House.
That's very exciting, because I too was helping with that one too. So that made me excited to hear.
Let's just put it this way. When you hear someone say it's the best application they have ever seen, you got to know that Westminster did a good job last year. So I'm hoping we can continue doing great jobs. All right. So with no further comment, any public comment? Grace, do you want to say anything? You're our only public left tonight.
I am definitely interested in the, is it the Maryland Heritage Grant? There's just the information on that.
Andrea will help link you up with that. I'm afraid it might be limited to nonprofits, but it's still interesting.
And just to let you know, and this is totally random, and I'm sorry to talk, but if you're not a nonprofit or a governmental agency, I did learn that there were also, through the heritage area, if there's any funding that's left over, and sometimes there is, based on demand and for projects, there's also low interest loans that are available to business owners or to people outside of those, the confines. So it might be something that works better for you in that regard. But I'll definitely can send you some information.
And if I could real quick, just two quick things. The winter market has been pushed back to the first Saturday of February because of COVID and other issues. We hope to extend it 2 weeks from the back end, hopefully up to Easter. So we are looking at that. But so if you don't see it out there, it did get pushed back, unfortunately. The other bad news is the Main Street manager that we thought we had hired informed us she is not coming to the city and she took a job elsewhere. So I will be opening up that job again. So we were really excited. So I'm a little upset about it, but it might be a little bit longer before we get a Main Street manager.
Wow,
Mark, when that, yeah, sorry, Chris, didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just exclaiming, that's a real setback.
Yes.
Yeah. Mark, when you have that job description reposted, would you mind alerting us and just sharing that? There's some folks in our networks, I'm sure, that may have some interest in that and would love to boost the signal to help ensure that we get the best candidate possible. That's a really important position for our Main Street life, and would love to do anything I can to help amplify the signal and make sure we have someone really good in there.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. We will do that. Thanks.
And I have no comment.
Good. Okay.
I'm sorry, can I say one more thing? I'm sorry,
Please
before you
do.
leave, I'm so sorry, don't beat me up or throw things at your computer. I just wanted to say, thank you to Josh. When we were getting all the names together for our Downtown Business Association meetings, your suggestions of people to reach out to were incredibly helpful, and they really brought a lot to the meeting. I really enjoyed talking with them and meeting them. So, and these are people that I didn't know either how to reach or even businesses that we that were there. So quick thank you.
Wonderful. Happy to help. And anytime you're looking for that, happy to just think about who else in the Rolodex should be there. So no, thanks for reaching out. I have one really quick question for the group. This is for city staff. We're broadcasting on YouTube. We used to broadcast on Facebook. Was there a reason for that shift? I just didn't track with that one. It's totally fine with me.
Yes, on the YouTube, one of the things I do is disable the comments, so there can't be any open discussion
Gotcha.
and any chatter in the meeting.
Understood. I guess this is probably a ripe moment for me to ask then publicly. So if someone does want to comment, they should email in their comment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for repeating.
How interesting. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is a lot of hard work tonight. It's about 8:30, so we're doing okay for time. Is there anything else we need for the good of the cause? Then I'll call for adjournment. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.